A few minutes to the start of today's shoot, when I was kind of like trying to prepare for this, a friend of mine was having an issue with one of his gadgets, and he just said, "This is why I buy everything I buy from Amazon." Then the other person was like, "Is it because of cost, pricing, and every other thing?" I was like, "No, it's not cost, it's not pricing. It's more like when I get stuff from Amazon, I can trust that it's original, I can trust that it's genuine. And that feeling of trust and genuinity, it's something that makes him choose that option, right? A lot of times, especially when you're not the only option in the market, one of the things that is very important is the intangible things that help people choose you. And this is what I'll be talking about today. Why should people even choose you? Do people trust you enough to want to do business with you? And hi, my name is Opayemi, and I will be discussing brand strategy in today's session. More often than not, I say that my entrance into brand strategy for me was, I didn't even know what it was. I think it was around 2019 or so. As of then, I had worked in radio, I'd worked in digital brand communication, I've worked in a digital magazine, I'd worked in newspaper, right? So I worked in like those four places. And I was now working in like a branding agency. And so I was asking myself a couple of questions, right? Despite my experience, exposure across a lot of things, I was not getting like the kind of results I wanted. So one day I sat down. I went to the spot we usually used to kind of like flex in somewhere around Ibadan, away from the Fosse studio. And I sat down and I bought a new jotter and I started writing. What are my strengths? What are the opportunities that come from my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the kind of opportunities that come from the kind of weaknesses that I have or that I perceive as weaknesses but could be seen as a strength? I did more like a SWOT analysis. I understood my strengths, the different things. Oh, you can talk, you can write, you can do X, you can do Y. What is that one thing that kind of like describes and captures what this is? And I think it was 2018, 2019, I sat down and I called myself a brand storyteller. 1 year after, or a few months after, it was my birthday. And my birthday is in January. And a lot of people wanted to celebrate me. And one word was common in every of the celebratory message. Let me not say every because I couldn't see all, but in like 70 to 80% of the congratulatory messages, it was brand storyteller of Africa, storyteller, and something like that. Different things around storytelling. And it dawned on me that I decided that I wanted to be known as something. And in a couple of months, with some active efforts, with some active, which were not even like major, so to speak, because as at then, I've not even worked with some of the biggest clients I eventually got to work with, right? But it dawned on me that, oof, it did work, right? It did work, and that was how I started doing brand strategy. At that point, I didn't know what it was called. I didn't even know that it was even like a niche that people focus on, right? And but now I have been doing it for like now maybe 3 years now professionally, and that is why I want to share with you because I saw how successful it was for me. I got to see how it's like at the core of some of the biggest and most important companies that we have seen in the world. I got to see how the intangibility of a brand could make it be like very, very important, right? I went to get a battery for my car a couple of days ago, and there were like several names, and the guy was like, "See, these two things, they are the same thing. The only reason why this one is more expensive than the other one is the name." And I know that for that battery guy, he does not understand, he may not understand the input of what he just said to be able to replicate it, right? But that's very important, right? That the only reason why this one was like X amount and the other one was Y amount was the name. So what is in a name? what exactly is that part that helps to distinguish you? What is the whole idea? Why is it that despite the fact that doctors have said it, we saw videos growing up of people using one brand to wash toilets. We have seen diagrammatic we have seen pictures of 9 or 10 or 15 cube of sugar or more. Like, we still drink Coke. Right? What is that thing that gives that value, that intangibility, right? That mental picture. That is what I'm going to be discussing today and talking about brand strategy. So brand strategy is a lot of things to a lot of people, but how I define it for myself, and in terms of the work I have done over the last couple of years, is that brand strategy is that blueprint that describes and helps to plan, situate, right, what you want people to see you as, right? It is designing a picture in your mind that you feel is going to give the perfect description of what you do. And at the end of the day, help to get value for the people you're serving and also get value for you, and designing that picture and then shipping out that picture so that the picture can now affect action, can affect brand equity, can affect loyalty, can affect how people use you, can affect how people talk about you, can affect the experiences people begin to expect from you, can affect your storytelling, can affect everything about you, right? So that is what brand strategy is for me, right? And let me give a couple of definitions that I kind of like saw online as I go on in today's conversation. What is brand strategy? Brand strategy is a term that embraces a company's reputation, products, services, or product and the services it offers. This definition says it's like a strategic plan that includes the brand's value, market position, purpose, vision, and ideal customer. These points are necessary for the company's teams to work in one direction and make the right decision. Besides vision and purpose, a brand strategy entails a brand's long-term goals. To achieve success, the company's team gets a good market position, provides customers with value, and creates a consistent message, and also develops initiative, right? This definition is exciting for me in that it helps to beam the spotlight on brand awareness, brand equity, and brand sentiment, which is some of like the most important elements of the document, right? A few weeks ago, I was talking with my fellows. So I have a few people that I'm kind of like having conversations with around becoming brand strategist. And we're having that conversation around, should we call it the brand strategy plan? Because these are some of the things change along the way after you have developed, because you continue to iterate as you have learned. I always describe the fact that the brand strategy document in itself is a living document. I mean, an organization in itself is living because you are learning and iterating on the way. There are some core things that form like the basis, but in terms of how it is approached or in terms of how it is applied, the more you continue to learn, the more you continue to change the way things are done. So what are the things that should be in your brand strategy document, right? I have read a couple of brand strategy documents from some of the biggest brands across the world, and I have a way I do mine, right? Because there are like several definitions, there are like several ways. There are some elements that are described as X and Y. I mean, looking at some of the top brand strategists in the world, there are like different ways everybody kind of like choose to there are like different ways different people choose to approach what they do. But for me, this is how I approach brand strategy, and this is what I'm going to try to like I wanted to speak grammar. Extrapolate. Extrapolate. Good. This is what I'm going to try to have a conversation on today. So, what are the things that are usually in my brand strategy document when I try to design a brand strategy for a company? One of the first things that is in that document, right, is an overview. The overview in itself is after having conversations with the CEO or major stakeholders in the company, I try to capture what the future is going to look like in a few words if this plan is adhered to. Like, right, what are those few words that kind of like capture the essence of our participation in the market, or the essence of our participation in, because if you're a product or a service or a business, then you're like focused on the markets, right? But if you're not, if you're a church or something, focused on your people, right? So I try to capture it in a few words, and that starts with like the overview. Then the next part you're going to get to see in that document is who we are. I'm reading Storyfied now, and it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And I'm getting to see how stories or framing is very important in how people get things done, right? So who you are is like the first and most important thing in the document when I get to create, and it's a product of the major stakeholders in the company. My job is just to ask the right questions to be able to get the answers that resonate with them, right? And then we get to discuss. So who we are. Who we are captures what you do. Not necessarily what you do. What you do is like the second question. It captures your core values, it captures your mission, it captures your vision. And those are some of the other things. Sometimes you also describe them as brand statements. So it starts with who we are. When you can answer the question of who you are, your essence, your why, right? There are a lot of videos around this. One of the one of my favorite videos around this is the video by Steve Jobs when he was announcing Apple, when he returned, and he was talking about the fact that if some of the greatest people who walked the face of the earth and had died were to come back to life, that they would be using a Macintosh, right? And that was when he also announced the whole Think Different thing. It's a short, amazing video from the 90s. The second one is Simon Sinek Start With Why, right? So when you answer these questions around your why, it helps to solidify your understanding of who you are, and then it is documented so that every other person who joins your company has an understanding of where this company is going to. I know that sometimes in this part, it's not like one of the popular things we get to think about when we are starting. When I mean this part, I mean probably like SSA, right? Sub-Saharan Africa, right? Because they just feel that let's just go to business, let's just get things done. But I have seen businesses who have paid attention to these elements in the last few years get some good results, right? And I am saying, who are you? It's one question that you need to answer, and that is one of the things that the brand strategy document gets to pay attention to. So there's the mission, there's the vision, and several other things around that. Then the next one is, what do you do? So it is a one-liner that kind of like helps to describe or encapsulate the whole functional benefit of your brand to the people you're trying to serve. What do you do in one line? For example, right? If I'm asked, what do I do as Okpeyemi Olugbemiro or as Ogbemiro? The core function is that I try to help to build the foundation in terms of stories that is important for PR, marketing, and growth to be able to do their jobs properly, right? When that foundation is done in terms of what the core stories are, in terms of being able to identify the right stories, then you now know how to be able to apply that to growth, to marketing, and to public relations, right? So, next question or next thing that I have on the document is your big story. Big story. I had totem pole for the first time in oh I had totem for the first time in Gold Ultimate Search. It was more like the symbol of authority for the leader of the house. And the second time I got to hear it was when I was learning about brand strategy. And your big story is more like a totem pole. It's that thing that holds everything together. I usually say that one of the major reasons why a lot of people are doing different things to be able to achieve one same result for one brand is that there's no big story that connects the whole essence. I love to use that word essence a lot, because it is, what exactly should this advert communicate to people? What about you is consistent about your experience? Every time there is a keynote from Apple, people usually come out and say, Android has already had this like 25 years ago. Let me just use that example. It's an exaggeration, but yeah, like, we have this thing before. So is this thing that you iPhone people are happy about? I'm like, yes. But again, for the whole period of that time, a lot of things that the world is talking about is either what Apple has released, what Apple has released that Android had before. But again, that's how, and they would sell it as if they are the first and only people to have done it. That's a level of coordination across the board that is only made possible as a result of the fact that there is a strategy behind how that brand is sold. So big story, back to big story. So big story is that totem pole, few lines of words. Sometimes it also comes with like a one-liner that helps to also capture the whole story. So when people are talking about your brand, they have a bit of an understanding of what it is. The next one is positional statement. Positional statement answers the question of, where do you sit as someone who is providing XYZ, right? So it is more like a sentence. Yes, a sentence that combines who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and why it is important for them to know that you do it, right? It's more like, if I get this right, if you get your positioning right, it's I'm trying to look for a story that explains it. It's that statement that answers the question of, what should people be looking for that they will find you, right? It's more like, so if this X person that you have described is looking for this Y thing in this kind of place, in this kind of way, we are the ones that they should talk to. Right? So that's what your positional statement answers. It answers the value you bring to the table. It answers how that value is going to change the lives, so to speak, of the people you are working with, right? And who those people are. So it's more like, it's in the word positional statement, the position we want to take in the minds of the people that we want to serve. Right? So that's another part of the document. The next part of the document, which is like very, 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 very important for me, is the brand promise. I'm not going to hammer a lot on brand promise because while preparing for this session, I just felt brand promise should just be the next video I release. I'm not promising, it may just be, right? So I will just do like a bit. And it's one of my favorite parts. Is it favorite or favorite? Anyone, just give me the correct one in the comment section where you read this, right? It's one of my, so now let me now use the two in the sentence. One of my favorite parts of developing a brand strategy document, because it is, a brand is useless, let me put it that way, if they cannot articulate their brand promise. So the only reason why you get a Nike, or why, for example, my friend's illustration that I used earlier when I was starting like this video, where I talked about the fact that he's getting from Amazon because he trusts them, is because there is an expectation that is met. When you are not clear about what people should expect from you, people define their own expectation, and then makes it harder for you to be able to meet and exceed it, right? But when you say, when you come to us, you get cheap, affordable, and quality stuff, you know the store that may come to mind, right? Anytime someone comes and does not meet that, right, then they can be disappointed. If they get something that is good, right? Or even not so good, but meets the criteria that they have set in their head that this is what they expect to get from you. It just aligns. Let me give another example that may work with you. You know when you buy stuff from the roadside, I mean those screensavers, those protector from the roadside from those guys that are like carried on the road. Sometimes like if you spoil we expect I mean, for those of you who do not speak Yoruba, it means that how much did they even get it in the first place? You're not expecting it to last. Have you gotten something before and you're like, you need it last though, right? So it's brand promise is setting the tone for how people are going to relate with you. Brand promise is setting the tone for how people are going to relate with you. What should people get to expect from my brand is the question that your brand promise answers, right? It is usually very simple. It's usually very clear. I think I'm just going to have that conversation in like the next episode edition. Which one do you guys want me to be using? Episode or edition? Right? Or in my next video. Next part after discussing brand promise, you have brand personality. Another very exciting one I love. It's how you give your brand human attributes, right? It is how people want to relate with other people, and that's what one of the things you would have found out is a lot of the brands that are popular, compelling, endearing have attributes that you can describe as attributes that you love in the people that you like. So, I mean, if you like bold people, you most likely know the brand they are going to relate to it, right? If you are very daring and adventurous and you see brands that embody that, you see how if there are options on the table, you will go for the one that you have a little bit of affinity with in terms of how you approach your own life, right? So this is what some brands have been able to understand, being able to become humans in how they approach the market. So brand personality is that part that says, this is who we are. This is the kind of person we are. This is how we do our stuff, right? This is based on human attributes. And there are like a couple of ways to get to do this. In the last few years, I have now been trying to see how I can combine brand archetype, which is another way for describing brand personality, to my own process. Brand archetype has like 12 human attributes that they use. It was developed through Carol S. Peterson's work when she wrote about awakening the heroes within, right? It has like sage, the innocent, the explorer, outlaw, creator, magician, hero, lover, jester, everyday man, and a couple of other stuff. I mean, I'm going to add a descriptor. I'm going to add like a note that you can read up on brand archetypes below. But the major thing brand archetypes is just trying to tell you is to try to see how they can contextualize the experiences of people as an experience that the brand can communicate. Next thing is tone of voice, which is directly linked, right, to brand archetypes. Tone of voice answers the question of, now that we know who you are, now that we know your personality, how do you sound, right? One thing we have to understand is that everything is connected to each other in the brand strategy document. So we start with who you are, we start with what you do, then we go into why you do what you do, what people should expect from you when they get to meet you, right? Which is like the brand promise. What people should be looking for that they will find you, which is like your positional statement. Then we go into what your personality is, right? Then we now go into how you sound, which could be how you talk, right? So if all these things are connected, one of the things that happens is that people see you in a particular way and there's no conflict in how they can visualize you as a brand. After tone of voice, it contains a couple of key messages, maybe 5, which are like themes before my English teacher comes to me, which are like themes that captures like top level stuff of the messages that are. So these are the North Star metrics that you look at when you want to design or when you want to communicate something. So these are the core things we talk about. So if you talk about something, or if you release a communication material and it does not embody some of these messages, you know that, oh, there is a problem somewhere. So key messages, very, very important one. Target audience, right? I mean, if you do not know who your target audience is, I mean, I don't know why you're in business in the first place. So the having understood yourself, your target audience segmentation, which sometimes has buyer persona, which also sometimes contains psychography, demography, different things about the people that you want to reach. Because now that you have identified who you are, where you stand, you also need to identify the people you are trying to reach, because it is combining these elements that makes you compelling. So what is compelling to people within a demography may not be compelling to people within another demography, right? So it is very important that you understand your target audience. Then lastly, I have been able to try to share a bit of what brand strategy is, or what a brand strategy document is, and show how important this should be for you if you're building a business. As I've always said, sometimes people get these things right without really even knowing what it is. Because, I mean, if you mistakenly miss any and see it will give you salt. But if you do it under the right conditions, understanding the different elements that come to play in building this, then you can replicate it and scale it, right? So, as important as this is, if you get this right, these are some of the things that a great brand strategy document will help you do. A great brand strategy document will help you understand who you truly are. It will help you communicate your brand consistently and effectively. It will also help you attract the right customers. And lastly, it will help you position your brand. Brand strategy is really important for brands who want to be indelible, more like for brands who want to stamp their footprints on the sand of time. Why? Because it helps to connect intangibility to the several other functions and benefits that your brand will bring to the table. I have started different conversations in like the previous videos I have had about what the brand is, brand storytelling. You could watch and see how you can connect the dots towards building the brand that people will love, right? As I've always said, I mean, an amazing business, an amazing product, amazing treating of people is an integral part of this whole stuff that we are talking about. If you don't have that, it makes every other thing you're doing a force. I wanted to say until we meet again, see you right back. But thank you very, very much for watching my video to this point. If you have watched to this point, I mean, it means it was like valuable to you. Like, subscribe, share, and have a great day. My name is Tiokwe Emiolugwemero. Bye bye.